Um, so we're really happy to welcome Vera Van De Seyp. Sorry if I didn't pronounce that right.
That's great.
Okay, to our creative coding series. So I'm Douglas Hedrick Stanley. I'm a professor in the program. Alexia will be joining us later. She's still in a meeting. And we're here with the first year students at the head, where today we've been talking to robots with GPT and other AI technologies.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, so thanks for being with us today, Vera. Vera, you're a designer and creative coder. Your work focuses on typography, languages, and artificial intelligence, amongst other things. And you also teach digital media at the graphic design department of ArtEZ. I'll let you start. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll share my screen. Hello, everyone. I think you need to enable screen sharing.
All right, let's see if I can figure out this button. Enable screen sharing. Does somebody know where enable screen?
I think in if you have like a little button next to the share screen button. And then you can say like multiple people share at once. I think that will do the trick.
So if you could explain to us again.
Sorry. So there, I think there's a share screen button in the bottom center. And if you click it, there's like a little pop-up.
There you go.
And then you can say multiple people or all participants can share. Something like that.
Something like that. Okay, so how's that?
Yes, that's great. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to share. I have one desktop. For sharing. So let me know if you can see this.
Looks great from our end. We can hear you.
Okay, great. Hello. So this is a 3D render of me. It's quite old, but just we're not there physically. Actually, so it's been a while that we planned this, and actually the last time that we scheduled it, I was in Geneva, so I made these pictures as proof. They're not very pretty, but yeah, I know about the head, and I think it's a very cool school, so I'm very glad that you asked me. And yeah, as you said, Eric, I'm actually a graphic designer, so I studied graphic design for my bachelor at the Royal Academy of Arts in The Hague because I wanted to make books. Yeah, that did not really happen, although I did make a book even for my graduation work, but I did notice that I like these books, and I had this interest in books because it's kind of a system that holds information, and it's a very nice format to have a system, a logical system to show a lot of content. After my bachelor, I worked at Lest, which is now called, for a large part, R&DR. And I worked as a designer, but we did a lot of projects that were like quite code heavy. And I already had this interest, and I was already coding a bit, but this was like really advanced stuff. So the people that were working there were really good programmers, and we made like this project, for instance, for Audi that was like a city landscape that was generated, and like all the logic was generated, and there were like there was so much complexity in that, and I really liked that actually, and I was quite frustrated at some point because I couldn't program that well, so I actually couldn't program within this job. So at some point I left and I went to do a master's called Media Technology. It's a university master's. I don't know if in Switzerland you have this difference, but it's like a bit more academic. And basically you can do your own creative research. So now I'm MSc Vera Van De Seyp. That's not a title I ever use except for when I show it in a meme. And I have my own practice, and I guess, yeah, you see the studio behind me as well, I guess, and here you see a part of it too. And a lot of it is design, so almost all my projects are design based. But yeah, still a lot of it is yeah, actually, I think there is not a project where I don't code. So yeah, I think I tried to think of one, but I couldn't find one. So I guess they're all programmed in some way or another. There's always a part that's programmed. I also teach, so yeah, I know about sharing like slides and stuff not working or presenting. Although I would say a little bit more than half of my projects are for cultural institutions. There is a bit smaller part that's slowly growing for more corporate clients. I guess like 1 out of every 5 days I teach, or I give workshops as well. And then there's a very small part I couldn't even fit it in. That is self-initiated work or like volunteer work. That's a quite small part, but I'm showing this to you because I'll show a few projects and not all of them will be cultural, but that's still the highest percentage of my work. And I guess like, yeah, this is also something I'd like to show because a lot of the projects that I really like, they give me fun and they give me purpose. But yeah, there's also projects that I do just because it gives me a lot of money or because I feel like I helped in a way or another, or, you know, I try to. And then I would say last year was quite crazy for me. So it was like, I would say 85% work. I worked a lot. So, I mean, I also kind of planned that, and I hope this year it will be a little bit more chill, and hopefully also a little bit more offline. But you know, we don't know. Let's hope. Yeah, and so at the basis of my practice is really exploring things. So I really like to use codes for visual systems, but also to really understand how certain things work. And it can be something very like specific, like how can you code a landscape or how does a fungus grow, but it can also be more abstract, like how are different forms of randomness working. So like if you have random programs, that's actually kind of a contradicting saying because a computer can never be random. So you call that sort of randomness. That's something I'm really interested in because there's quite a lot of ways that's been solved by people. Quite nerdy, but yeah, that's what I like. And but also more graphical things like, for instance, fractals or everything that has to do with grids. I love grids. So for instance, how can you work with it if it's declining or increasing? How can you read images or make animations? So the next one has a flash warning, the next slide. So if you have some issues with that, just close your eyes for a few seconds. I also really like color theory, and the more it flashes, the better. Okay, it's safe again. And also stuff like how the superposition, how can you do that, recreate it digitally, which is, I think, a bit closer to traditional graphic design, and also type system. So how can you set up a type system? So yeah, that's just, yeah, throwing a lot of things at you, but it comes down to exploring systems, and I really try to use my work, even the more applied projects or the more commercial projects, to do that. So I'll show you from each of these categories, I'll show you something that I've recently done in the past year. One of them is the project I did with Imprint projects and Losse Koorskaart, which was basically a tool for events, which they used in-house. So I don't think it's visible anywhere, which is kind of weird. It went into this kind of black hole, but it was really, really fun to work on it. And basically how that worked, there was like it had to be like a music or something reacting to music. And it was super fun. Actually, this was one of the more corporate things I did last year. And it was really funny to see how actually you kind of expect that those, or I kind of expect those projects not to be fun, but I actually find them really fun because the planning is arranged, there's budgets, and then if you're working as a creative coder, they kind of just let you play around. It's like creative. So I thought it was really fun to do that. And yeah, so they really used it in an event that was, yeah, hidden, was kind of in-house, but also some communication arose. So that was nice to see. This was like a YouTube video I found of like some very obscure Korean thing, but it was quite cool to see these visuals kind of appear, and this tool that I made appear in this kind of random fun format. Anyway, quite recent, more self-initiated project is, well, it's actually knitting, like in general, but I think the main expression of that was a show I did together with Charlotte Roda, who was a type designer and an artist, and we had a show in Berlin, so that was really nice. And how it started was, so this was, I think, in year 2 of the lockdown. I was doing quite a lot of websites because all of a sudden every festival, or at least in the Netherlands mostly, a lot of festivals and events and things that I would normally work for to make a graphic identity or communication, they wanted websites. And I really noticed I missed working with my hands a little bit. So like if you make print, at least, you know, even if the process involves coding, there's still like a material result. And then I realized for a year almost I didn't, or a year and a half, I didn't make any material results, which is, yeah, it's kind of odd. It's also nice because there's no clutter, but it's also a little bit odd. And I really miss that. And I was already knitting by hand, so that was like a hobby. You know, like people bake bread in the during the lockdown in the beginning. Like the knitting was really my thing. And I saw then at some point one of the neighbors in my studio gave me a knitting machine because I didn't want it anymore. And then I found out there's knitting machines you can hack, which is, I don't know, you're probably gonna hear a lot of sound.
Ja, graag. Dat wil ik wel hoor. Yes!
Okay, this was the first, I'll continue, but I just wanted to put some sound in there because you hear this like, this kind of beep every time you knit, but basically it's a machine that, yeah, you can replace the memory with an Arduino with a shield. And then you can actually, load in an image or work with real-time data. And yeah, the memory was really kind of the bottleneck in the time these machines were made. So yeah, I did this, and then Charlotte saw this because we're quite close friends, and she said, well, you know, maybe we can make like a purpose for ourselves to make work. She was working with a lot of metal and ceramics at the time. So we actually got in touch with Soft Power. So they're a project space in Berlin, and we agreed with them to do a show there. So it was actually a little bit self-initiated, but yeah, it was still quite nice. And so we got funding for it ourselves, just so that, you know, we could, we wouldn't make money ourselves, but we would at least be able to pay other people and like have some projects or like some like physical material costs. And that was all kind of during summer, which, yeah, I had, at that point, I had 3 knitting machines. I now have 4, which got a bit out of hand, but only one of them has this memory setup. So only one of them can print this, or like can help you knit these type of images or something from the computer. But it was also during the holidays, and given you saw how much, or like kind of the percentage of how much I worked, I wanted to have some sort of a holiday before the show. So I went with a couple of friends to some house in Normandy, and I took this giant machine in my suitcase, and I mean, we had a car, so that helped a bit. But what's quite nice, like all the works, I made 3 big works for the show, and all of them refer to the time that this machine was really in use, so between the 50s and the 80s, when actually it was quite common for women to program, and it was even more considered a woman's job because it came from I don't know how to say this in English, but transcribing. It came from transcribing when people would talk, or writing news or stuff like that. So from the typewriter, this was like, programming was a logical next step. And also at the time there were, you know, the rise of these types of machines that were kind of supposed to make your life easier, especially emancipate women. So there was like the dishwasher, but also this knitting machine, which is quite funny because it's like, it's supposed to be portable. It comes in a case, but also weighs, I think, 15 kilos or something. So it's, you know, it's like, it's not fully emancipating, but it also, at that time, I think it did also good things. So the first work I made was, a system I programmed using a variable typeface that I designed myself for this. That basically has, that can basically animate between 2 extremes. So it has like a 2 masters, and then it can interpolate in between. So you can animate it really nicely, or like manipulate it quite nicely, more easily than with non-variable typefaces. So the first one was Softwork Software, and there was, basically reference, a quote actually in a time at that time that programming was considered soft work, and that later on was coined software in the 80s. So it's kind of a reference to that. And this, I think they increasingly become less legible, because in a way they can also function as type specimens, but I was mostly interested in finding out, like kind of tweaking these fonts as much as possible, and also finding kind of the settings on the knitting machine that worked really well. So this one, I think I have to remember what it says. I think it says woven memory. Yeah, it says woven memory. So that was a reference to the first computer memory. So that was actually woven by women. It was like a kind of a maze of electrical wires. So another kind of reference, although this one, I don't expect anyone to read that. And then what I quite liked about this one, I worked with 2 quite contrasting colors. And as you can see, I also hung it in the place that you can quite see the back, and it's kind of a nice visual reference to wires, or something like that. And then the third was actually a quote from a book that was written in 1969, that was encouraging women to go programming. That was like, okay, it's really something that will give you freedom, financial freedom, and it will like really kickstart your career, which was also really the case then, because she could, that was like the most earning job for a woman, like kind of a common job. So this one says, like cooking from a book, which is, the quote was like, it's as easy as cooking from a cookbook. So if you like cooking from a cookbook, you'll also like to program, which is, now it kind of makes me angry, but at that time it was not sarcastic. It was really meant like, okay, it's like a logical process. So if you like following instructions, you'll like programming as well. And here I went even a bit further. So I only used 1 color of yarn and 2 weights, actually 3 weights, but I kind of combined them. And I really tried to play with the gradients and like the lights coming through it. So it's quite hard to read, but once you kind of recognize the letter, it appears a little bit. And here also I wanted to show the backside, which I still think is quite nice. And this was a work of Charlotte, so she made also a typeface, a matrix typeface actually for this, and made kind of these components to make an installation with aluminium. That's really beautiful. Yeah, and we made also some work together, but I just wanted to focus on the knitting for this part. I don't know if you can still see me, but I'm also wearing a sweater that I finished it yesterday. This is the only picture I have of it, the one on the right. And the one on the left is an earlier prototype. So I'm now slowly going into making clothes, which is quite a lot of work. But I think with the exhibition, I quite struggled. Actually, the materiality of it was fun, but then finding a way to show it, I still quite like to think in functional terms. So that's why I like the idea of clothes, because it's like, if you have a garment, it's clear that you can wear it and that it has a function like that. So that's something I'm trying out now. It's really fun. Anyway, then I have this project that is an ongoing project. It started with my master thesis, which I don't know if you probably know this project. So this is this person does not exist. There was a website that showed the functioning of the style gun, the second style gun, written by researchers at NVIDIA, so actually the graphics card company. And I was really curious, okay, how can I use this technique as a designer? Because of course it makes images. So like, which images can it reproduce? How could I use it as a tool? And so to do that, I wanted to do a process and basically try to do everything from scratch myself, not make the entire style gun, because they did it and they actually made it open source, but still make my own data sets, have my own computer, train it, tweak it, stuff like that. So I needed something that was square, that is graphic design, because they was about graphic design, and that could be found online so that I could scrape somehow. And album covers were the perfect format, basically, because we it's all of these things, and then it's also a really good format because it has almost always all the elements that you would work with as a graphic designer making a composition. So it has color, type, images, different types. So I scraped around 200,000 images. I had to do it a few times over. I used Discogs, which is it's open source music platform. And yeah, I had to tweak it a bit because it's an open source platform. So a lot of the images were really, really bad quality, there were a lot of flash pictures of LPs, and but with some settings in the scraper, I could kind of filter them out. And in the end, I had 7 genres, and for each genre, 4 subgenres, and then the number you see is the amount of unique album covers that are in that category. So it was somewhere between 1700 and 1900. I don't know, at some point it just stopped the scraper, but I was also like, okay, around 10,000 is good enough for now. And then I made I didn't make it, I just connected parts for a computer. So what's quite nice, I actually expected that to be the most difficult part, and it was really easy. I never had done something like that before. But the most important part is the graphics card for this. So I bought this one, the GeForce RTX 2080 Titan, which is quite a good one. I think now there's already better ones. And yeah, then you kind of need to make sure that all the components fit each other. But other than that, it's really just a matter of connecting the right wire to the right exit. And then I had everything ready. So I had the script, which I used the open source script from NVIDIA, I had the data set, and I had the computer that would be strong enough to run it. And then it just kept on crashing, and I really didn't know why. And I think it took me like quite a long time to figure out. Every time I would start it up, it would run for a while, and then if I would go away, I would come back to this blue screen of death. And I found out it was just overheating. So I put in already, there were 11 fans in it, but that was not enough. So I had this set up with a human fan on the side, and that actually worked. So it started training, and I went on holidays. I feel like every time I do a project, I go on holidays. I don't go on holidays that often, but yeah, I came back to results that were really interesting, but they were kind of generic. So I looked a bit into, okay, how does a gun really work? What are we dealing with? And basically, I like to imagine it as a 3D space. So kind of like a cube. And in that, every point that you can find in it represents an album cover or like an image that it can generate. So if 2 points are closer together, the images that it will return from that point will be more similar. And if they're further apart, it will be more different. The thing is that you don't have 3 dimensions, but you have 512 dimensions. But I like this model to think about how that works. So I also realized when reading into this and really kind of tweaking certain settings that it really helped to also have a more specific data set. So I first trained it on the entire data set, so all the 7 genres, which are, you can expect them to be quite visually different. And so, yeah, I trained them on all the genres and the subgenres to see like, okay, what works. So this was, for instance, classical music. So you saw, yeah, it's still like, it's not actually as smart as some people give it as like the credit that people give. It's just a statistic tool in the end. So it tries to recognize patterns and reproduce them. So here you saw like classical music apparently has a lot of faces of men, like always one, or landscapes. So there were quite a lot of nice landscapes. I'm always showing 4, but then there's like this model has like a virtually infinite amount of images it can render. This one was country, which you can see by the cowboy hats. There was almost always just one person with a quite clean background. This one was electronic, and here you see the images were, I think, visually quite different. So you see that it's a bit more grainy, and yeah, I think it has to do with that. And then here, this was R&B. So something really peculiar happened here, where it recognized this parental advisory sticker that you have on some album covers, and then it reproduces that completely legible, or almost completely legible. Like this was, for me, I mean, I didn't go into it, but the other text is not that legible yet. So yeah, it was really nice to see. But then sometimes it also put it like 4 times on one cover, which never really happens in real life. This was jazz. This was pop, so a lot of faces. And this was rock. Yeah, I quite like the landscape on the top left. Yeah, I think this was a really nice process. I think it works as a visual style. It's like a very outspoken visual style. So I think it doesn't always work, but 2 things I've been continuing working on is the way you can use it to make animations. So I think that is quite a unique feature that is hard to reproduce with other techniques. You can really have kind of this morphing effect. And then like trying to understand how the rendering of type works. Of course, this gun is not that smart, so it doesn't understand the semantic meaning of what it reproduces. So it's really hard to make one image with all the texts, but you could, so you could actually make one letter at a time. And then if you would know kind of what area, what letter would be placed in, then you could use it to, yeah, make animations. So I did that. I basically trained it on a new gun on all the typefaces on my computer, which is a lot. And yeah, I tried to find the clusters of the existing letters. It's just lowercase. And yeah, on the left you see kind of a random interpolation, and on the right you see it going from one letter area to another. It's quite nice to make animations with. Yeah, it's still something I'm continuing, like whenever I have the time. I hope to have more time again this year. And then the last thing I'll talk about shortly, I'm almost out of time, is iterations. So that was, I actually got funding for this from the Dutch government. The Dutch government has really good, yeah, a really good funding system. If you ask me, it's from the Creative Industries Fund, and it was to develop my practice. But one of the things I really wanted to do was to organize a festival or a symposium on creative coding, but with a bit more, yeah, a representation. Basically, I did some talks. I think actually HED is really doing good, but it also happens quite often that it's quite white, quite male, kind of, yeah, same type of group of people that is showing their work. And I think there's a lot actually of places that are improving that, but I wanted to do something like that in the Netherlands. Yeah, and also make it open to the public, so make it available for free online and physically. So this was nice because I did the almost entire production. I had some help and some coaching from Creative Coding Utrecht, which is a community in a city in the Netherlands, of which I'm quite close with one of the organizers. So they helped me, but I did, yeah, almost everything myself. So it was the production and the identity and talking with the artists and finding a space and buying snacks. And like, there's actually so many things that you have to do, which, you know, I kind of anticipated it would be too much, but I wanted to really see how that, yeah, what you need to do something like that. So there's the website is still online. It's really, I think, really fun. Like, this is nice if you're your own client. You can kind of just do whatever you want and nobody will tell you that there's too much or it's too many colors or something like that. So that was really fun. Like, for instance, the part you see now was actually kind of a debug to design this timetable, and then I made it red, and then I was like, oh, actually quite like it that way. I'm just gonna leave it that way. I did have some help from Marie Madonna, who works with me from time to time to do like the merch and stuff like that. So we made a poster and we made a bag and we made some stickers and banners and stuff like that. Yeah, I won't show too many images. I have quite a lot, but it was really nice to see. I think the event we made physically that was quite small. We kept it small because actually in the middle of the event, a new lockdown was announced in the Netherlands. So it was like, we were not sure up till the day itself if it would be able to take place physically. But it was still really nice because of that. It was also way more intimate. And we also recorded everything and put it available online for free. So yeah, it was really nice to see all of that. This is Yewan. I think she visited you last year, although you might not have been there yet, but you can still see her talk. And also there were some other events like live coding and kind of Q&A moments. So yeah, if you want to see more of that, you can go to this website. It was really nice for me to, yeah, it felt really gratifying in a way to be on the other end of of such an event and organizing it. And it made me really grateful that when people are doing that. So that was a nice process. So this is everything I'll show. You can follow more of my work on Instagram. I don't post a lot, but sometimes I do. Merci, thank you. I'm gonna stop sharing now. Yeah. I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear the entire question.
Somehow the way these microphones work, I guess, is. Yeah, she was wondering about the cultural institutions that you work with. What type of cultural institutions do you work with?
Yeah, good question. So they're very often Dutch. So for instance, it can be museums. For instance, in Rotterdam, there's a place called Nieuw Instituut that I work for quite a lot. It can also be galleries, so art galleries or art spaces, project spaces. Sometimes it's also in the context of a school that I work on a visuals for a symposium or something like that. So yeah, it really differs from what. It can also be like single instances, like then it's not an institution, but like artists or photographers that want help with their website or something like that. So it's quite varied, I would say, even within that group. I hope that answered.
I'm gonna try again to see if I can put you back on the speaker. I think I'm starting to understand the
logic.
The crazy logic of Zoom and Zoom rooms. This is a Zoom room. It's these very sophisticated technologies that are over-designed. I don't know if you've had this experience with technology, where it's not designed for users, it's designed for technical people, like technical staff who go through training. And you never know where the buttons are, and it's not intuitive in any way. So let me try this from my audio. Let me try to put you back on here, but I'm going to turn off this. Okay. Sorry, I'm just attempting to change view, start view. Okay, and I'm going to put you, now that I have that, I'm going to put you back on the restaurant screen. All right, so let's see if that works. No, don't think I hear you. Yeah, no, it's just not going to be. Okay, well,
but maybe what we can do is
well, we're recording this, so we'll be able to at least listen to the answers later. But yeah, go ahead, Salome. You wanted to suggest something? Oh yeah, from the chat. Sure, go ahead. Yeah. Yes.
Or maybe. Oh, sorry.
No. This is hilarious. Okay.
It's a nice beat generator.
Yeah. So this is like. I think this is like all we're gonna have right now.
For me, it's all good.
Yeah. So if I could. Are there any questions? Anyone else have any questions? Okay, I had a whole bunch of questions, but we're really running out of time, and we've got this crazy. There was a whole bunch of. I mean, I had just some quick questions about all of the knitting stuff, which is really interesting. We're fascinated with that, and we. Like where we're speaking to you right here, we're actually in the room of the old Elna sewing factory. So there's, kind of interesting histories going on here. And we've organized processing,
coding
workshops here as well. So, there's a lot of sort of fun connections. But cool. I was wondering how Oh, and your sweaters are amazing. Like, I want one of these sweaters. How can I get these
Thank
sweaters?
you. Not yet. So I
Not
made
yet.
now one, like now I had 2 weeks off and I made 2 sweaters and that's all I did.
Yeah.
So, but I'm gonna look into a way that I can make them more quickly.
Yeah.
So just like keep
Be patient.
keep following my work, and I hope at some point to make that
Okay, cool.
possible.
And I was wondering how much you're connected with other creative coder, technology, knitting people like Claire Williams. I saw you
Claire,
had
yeah.
Charlotte Ho, and yeah, okay, so you know Claire and that. So you're part of that scene as well?
I wouldn't say so. I invited Claire, but I think maybe she didn't get my email, but I know her work. I absolutely adore her work. So
Oh, we have
I
to
know
get
about
you.
her.
We need to get you, yeah, working, yeah, because yeah, she has a really interesting community of people doing a lot of interesting experiments.
Yeah,
with,
exactly. So I know about this community, but I'm really new to it, and I quite like that, to have that position of kind of a outsider, because then you can kind of break the rules without upsetting, or like without I just like it because it's a bit more lower expectations, and I can just kind of try out stuff. But yeah, it would be really great to get in touch with them. I mean, I also got this whole HAP, which is actually the shield for Arduino. Like, I didn't make that. That's All Yarns Are Beautiful. It's an open source project. Claire actually wrote a whole tutorial for it, which I followed for a part. So yeah, I know about them, and I think it's really nice. It's really cool what they're doing. I really just enjoy that technique, really for the sake of making something physical, and because a lot of the work I make is quite graphic. So it somehow makes sense to have this kind of, it has like 2 colors at once that you can use. So it's like, it clicked for me somehow.
I also had I mean, that was interesting to see the typography work going on with these sweaters. I don't always see this degree of continuum between typography, code, knitting, and sort of the evolution of forms. It was also really great to see the GAN stuff. That I've seen a lot of typography GAN stuff, but it's interesting to see this sort of, sorry for the cliche, but the weaving all of these sort of mediums. And I was wondering, so from what I understood, you studied in art schools, then you worked on this large project, and you realized, oh, I need to code. Like, I need to learn how these systems work, is basically from what I understood. So I assume that you have a background, like when you were showing us that you're interested in fractals and grids. These are a lot of things that are also interesting to typographers, to traditional typographers. So I was wondering if you already had that language from typography and then you just fed it into code, or if it was a different process.
Yeah, really interesting question. So I definitely had this kind of quite traditional training in typography, although it was not the entire 4 years of my bachelor, but the Royal Academy of Arts is like quite a serious school when it comes to type design. Like, they take it really seriously. Also, like, fairly so. There's some really good type designers coming from there. So I really liked more this kind of system, but also breaking it and kind of upsetting the teachers, kind of making stuff that I would consciously break some rules and tell them, yeah, but I did it because of this. And I think, as a system, it works as maybe not for running text, but so it definitely, like, the interest in coding really started when I was studying graphic design. So because of all the stuff that I did was very rule-based, very system-based, I was interested in tool making. I don't think it was really there before. I really liked biology. So my dad is a biologist. So I had like a lot of like Ernst Haeckel prints, and but not really coding. That really came after I saw what I could do with it. So I saw it had like a purpose visually for me to do it. Yeah, but definitely there's a quite nice basis I got in type design at my bachelor's.
Okay, great. I mean, again, I've got a gazillion questions, but we want to keep these short, these sessions short, and with all of these audio problems, I'm just gonna leave it there. So thanks a lot for your talk.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wanna be updated on these sweaters because these.
Yeah, thank you.